Thank you to Elizabeth, to Theos, to the hosts of this evening, and to fellow panelists, and to everybody for coming this evening. I think Elizabeth really struck the right note when she sort of pointed out that immigration and immigration control and immigration policy really are among the most important issues for people, not just in this country, but all over the industrial world or the post-industrial world, however you want to look at it. It certainly played one of, if not the most significant roles in the referendum. And as we prepare to leave the European Union, it's both a responsibility and an opportunity to rethink some of the basic features of our immigration system, because it will obviously, our relationship at the border with other countries is going to be transformed quite significantly over the coming few years. Thinking about this, and I'm grateful to Adrian for pointing out that, you know, there have been points at which we have failed to discuss migration, immigration. It's a sensitive issue, and when we depoliticize issues, we take them out of the sphere of public contest, and therefore we don't have a healthy discussion about them. It's very difficult to separate our thoughts and our observations about policy from our observations about the politics of migration. So as much as we want to discuss the systems that we'll put into place, it's equally important to discuss the way in which we discuss migration, the way in which evidence plays a role in that, the language that we use. Attitudes and anxieties and emotions and thoughts, the stuff of pollsters or elections, these do shape policy, and that's how democracy works. But insofar as we discuss the politics of this, it's also important to note that the way we discuss a policy issue will shape attitudes over time. And that's just the way politics works in an open society. And there are, of course, points at which, you know, for decades, one might say for at least the decade or 2 decades through the New Labour period and onwards, that we didn't discuss migration, but there are also points at which we've discussed it in a very unhealthy way, and we've gone from one extreme to the other. So we've gone from an absolute silence about this issue to one in which we catastrophize the issue of immigration at every turn. And the politics and the policy have, over that period, brought us to the current juncture at which there are 2 realities that we face in our immigration system. The first of these is that there is no trust in government to manage immigration in a manner that is efficient, fair, or humane, or to the satisfaction of any of the stakeholders to this debate, to the satisfaction of those who have anxieties about immigration and think that it should be brought down significantly, or to the satisfaction of those who perhaps favour a slightly less restrictive or more permissive environment at the border. And no party in government at this point could reasonably command the trust of the public on immigration. Once these immigration is out of control and you have a system of targets which have been arbitrarily set, which are perpetually missed, and so it is quite understandable that a sizable percentage of the population view immigration as something that is out of control, because on any policy goal, out of control, uncontrolled, is obviously to the detriment of somebody. Controlled is always better, but what does control mean? And on the other side of this debate, you've got people who work within the immigration system, people who use the immigration system, or whose loved ones, employees, colleagues use the immigration system, and what they see as a system that is deeply inhumane and inefficient. So you've got a situation in which neither of the 2 positions on this are terribly happy with what we've got in front of us. Neither of them are satisfied, and nobody really wins at this point. And it's a polarizing issue, and that's the second big reality that we've got to face, that immigration as an issue is polarizing in a way that it doesn't necessarily need to be. Lots of issues are polarizing or divisive, and we've all just seen an extended debate about a 3rd runway at Heathrow Airport. But why is it so important that we talk about the polarizing nature of the immigration debate? And it's because the immigration debate, or discussions about immigration, are discussions that touch on so many other issues, including the question of who counts as us and who counts as them, who is us and who is the other, what are the rights and entitlements that these different groups have. And ultimately this idea of the common good, because ultimately this is the question of how are 60 or 70 million of us going to live together on this island? And that's why the immigration debate is so central. Because it is dangerous over a period of time for us to remain this polarized on this issue, and there does need to be a move towards some form of consensus, whether that involves concessions from those who perhaps favor open borders or less restrictive policies, or from those who have a target in mind or have a policy which sees immigration as an end goal of policy. To my mind, and you'll find this strange given that I work in an organization with the word immigrants in the title, I don't think immigration is a policy goal. I think immigration has become a policy issue, but really when we're talking about immigration, we're talking about several other issues lumped together. We're talking about opportunity in the economy and the dispersion of opportunity in the economy. We're talking about cohesive communities and integration, which, though inextricably linked to immigration, is a debate unto itself. And what we've got to do is de-link some of these things when we think about how we build an immigration system after Brexit. And just briefly, because I've got 2 minutes and 9 seconds, I will outline a few short principles of what an immigration system that works for the common good might look like at this juncture. The first of these is that our immigration system, the laws and policies that govern our border, must be based on evidence, and the goals that govern those policies must be realistic. If we set a policy, we have to ask ourselves, is there a real need or a problem that this is fixing? Does this policy fix it, and is it a realistic goal? Because if we set targets that we miss year after year after year, we erode confidence in the system. If we set policies which are needlessly restrictive, needlessly harsh, violate all sorts of rights, but are known at the time to not really work and won't necessarily deliver our policy goal, then we break that consensus for no really good reason at the end of the day. The second is that policy must protect and promote the rule of law. Once we've determined, and our organisation has sort of stepped out of the debate on numbers and what the flows of people across our border should be, once we've determined what groups of people are and aren't allowed to come in, it shouldn't be impossibly complicated for those who are, in fact, eligible to enter the country. It shouldn't require people to use an expensive lawyer in order to take up a job that they've been offered, which allows them status in the country under Tier 2, or to join a spouse who does in fact earn above the state's minimum income requirement. It should not be this difficult for either the applicant or for the state. We should not be in a situation in which judges find 51% of Home Office decisions that come to them are in fact wrong. It shouldn't be that complicated. No community should be left behind, and this is Adrian's point about averages. There is no one-size-fits-all approach, and there must be a mechanism for regions to provide feedback on migration needs. Non-migration policy becomes critical here. We need a mechanism by which the benefits of migration, be they fiscal or economic, are kept in communities so that communities that receive higher flows of migration see some of those benefits. And finally, immigration policy should encourage long-term integration and stable, cohesive communities, and this includes making pathways to citizenship significantly more navigable to avoid the situation we're in now, where several 100,000 people have fallen out of our immigration system and are essentially undocumented as a result. These are perhaps just very abstract, basic principles, but I think they provide a useful starting point if we want to talk about building a cohesive, sensible immigration policy that works for everybody, migrant and non-migrant alike.